everybody. Thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View. We don't get to say this a lot, but I'm kind of stoked to say it. Please help us welcome tonight monster truck driver and founder of Vixen Industries clothing line, Becky McDonough. Becky, welcome to the show. Holy moly. I mean, monster truck driver, really cool. How in the heck did you end up being a monster truck driver? Question number one. Let's go.
Yeah, it's actually something I've wanted to do probably since the ninth grade. I went to a Monster Jam event in Minneapolis and I completely fell in love with it. I was like, that's what I want to do someday. I watched Medusa get out and she flicked her hair out of the helmet and everything. And I just thought it was the coolest thing. So from there, I went like the next year as a sophomore, I went and I studied high performance engines and chassis fabrication because I was like, I kind of want to get in the ground floor, right? Like,
yeah,
kind of intimidating to get right in the driver's seat. So I started off as a crew chief shortly after college, and I ended up getting a position with Monster Jam like 3-4 months out of school, and moved out to North Carolina, worked in the gravedigger shop from the floor up, and worked on those for 5 years before I started driving. And unfortunately, COVID, kind of put a wrench in a lot of people's lives, and I haven't actually been in Toro since COVID, but my husband has his own truck, so we've kind of been doing our own circuit and moving forward from there. And it's really cool because we are actually in the process of building a second truck, so we will both be out there together every single weekend racing each other.
So your husband does this too?
Yeah, yep. So it's kind of how we met.
Oh, that's a unique meeting. Was it at like a Monster Jam, or how did that go down?
Yeah, we were in World Finals in Las Vegas, and I had seen him the year before, and I didn't really think nothing of him. He kind of didn't like me. It's probably a little bit of my RBF, but
oh my God.
Just the next year, I was just like, hey, who's this guy? And he's got a really nice truck. And then we kind of just started talking, and it went from there. And at that time, I lived outside of Chicago, working out of one of our shops there. And then I was getting ready to move to Florida. So it's like, well, it doesn't really work out when you're in California and I'm moving to Florida, which is now another time zone away. So, let's just call it quits. It is what it is. It was fun while it lasted. And then about a year later, it just kind of circled back. So it's like, well, why don't we just give this a go? And next thing I knew, I was in California.
Wow. I love it. Okay. So the Monster Jam story from my house is that this goes back like a year and a half ago. We had tickets to Monster Jam, and we had like a box or something that somebody had given us. And so my husband was like, let's get literally everyone we know. This was down in Miami. Let's get everyone we know to come to the Monster Jam. And so we invited all these people. This is like the week before. So anyone we knew with kids were like, come to Monster Jam. This is going to be amazing. Our kids were so excited. My son, who at the time was 4, was so jazzed about this. You have no idea. It's all he was talking about. Somebody had given him like the grave digger, like remote control truck. He was flipping it around in the driveway, ready to roll. On our drive down from where I live in Palm Beach County to Miami, my son came down with the stomach bug that almost all the rest of us had already had. Oh yeah. So I stayed with him. My husband like drove me back home with my son. He and I stayed at home. And then my husband took my daughter, who was like 2.5, just the two of them, down to Monster Jam. And let me tell you something. She may be following in your footsteps, Becky, because when she came back, she was all about it. She had the greatest day of her life, probably partially because my husband, I think, only fed her like Oreos and chocolate bars the whole time. But nonetheless, I have still not been to a Monster Jam. I've got to get involved, and I have to take my son because he was devastated that we didn't get to go. So that's the Monster Jam story from my house. Hopefully we can see you in some capacity doing this. My question always for people who get into sports that I feel like, I want to say it's a little crazy, but it's a little crazy. Like you're in a giant truck, you're like jumping over things. The first time you had to do that, like how was it for you? I assume you must start small, but like the first like major thing you had to do in one of these trucks, were you like freaking out? How did that go?
Yeah, no, for sure. Your heart's definitely beating out of your chest. And I
Yeah.
mean, you are strapped in so tight that you can't really breathe to begin with.
Oh.
But if you're sitting there at the starting line, like that's all you can feel is your heartbeat. So it is kind of crazy. I do remember the very first time I actually got to drive the truck under power. And I mean, it was something I had wanted to do for I don't even know how many years at that point, you know. So I was kind of like a little kid in a candy store, just so excited, so nervous, but excited at the same time that it was all kind of coming together. And that was actually just out in a field in the North Carolina shop, just kind
Oh.
of all of us crew guys that had never got to drive the truck under power. They let us go out there and kind of just hit one jump and call it a day just to see what it was like. So that was pretty exciting. And then yeah, my very first show, I think I blacked out. I really don't even remember anything. It
Yeah,
is
I
blacked
mean,
out
I
in my
can.
mind somewhere.
Yeah, not only are you performing, it's like one thing to go on stage and sing or dance or something like that, but like the stage for you is you're in a giant truck lifted up. I don't even know how high these things are, right? With the big tires and you're crushing things and you're jumping over things and flipping around and stuff. And I mean,
Yep.
there's obviously an element of danger. That's part of, I'm sure, the excitement of all of it. So like the ante is upped quite a bit for you when you're
Sure.
out there performing. How is it now for you? Do you get nerves before you go out and do one of these shows?
Yeah, 100%. You know, I haven't, I mean, just this last weekend, I drove one of my buddy's trucks out for intros and I did a couple different jumps for a skills contest. And still, like, even after intros, which it was hot intros, and which hot intros are when we go out and we make a couple jumps and then we pull up in front of the crowd and wave. And I got out and I was just shaking because it's been a while since I've been in the truck, but it's so much adrenaline and it's so exciting. And it's kind of like your own personal roller coaster, right? So
Yeah.
it's so much fun. But yeah, you get out and you're super pumped and you're nervous before. You're just nervous of the truck holding up, or you're nervous about messing up, or not looking as good as you should. So there's definitely a lot of nerves. And I feel like the day that those nerves are gone, you've kind of wore yourself out on it.
Yeah. And I mean, look, I think for anybody to do this is just like such a badass thing. But I got to point it out, Becky, the fact that you happen to be a woman, even more badass, like that's even cooler to me. What's the ratio of women to men in this kind of like monster truck scene? I imagine obviously a lot more men, right?
Oh, for sure. But
Yeah.
honestly, the times are changing. When I first got in 2006, I think, there was maybe 3 or 4 female drivers, including the independents and in Monster Jam. So completely in the whole sport, maybe
Wow.
3 to 5 women, and no crew guys or no crew girls. I was the very first female crew chief for Monster Jam,
Oh,
which was huge, right? I mean, and of course, all the guys had their bets on me of how long I would make it. I'll give her a month, or she'll be here for a couple weeks, and then after 2 years, they're like, oh, we did have these bets on you, but here you are, still a thorn in our side. So, and now there's a handful of women crew chiefs out there, so it's really cool to see. Honestly, I don't know how many women are driving anymore. I would say closer to 15, maybe across the board between Monster
yeah.
Jam and all the independents out there. Yeah.
I love it. Well, look, I mean, I know that the notion is that women are not good drivers. I gotta tell you something, Becky. I'm a great driver. In fact, I would argue that if we have to get somewhere in a speedy fashion, so to speak, I would say that my husband would be very happy to hand the keys over to me. Not to say he's not a good driver. He's a very good driver, but I think he knows like I hone in and I get after it. So I like that you're holding it up for the ladies out there and really showing, people like my daughter that this is something that maybe they
Yeah.
can do one day. Do you get like young girls coming up to you telling you that they want to do this one day?
Yeah. And it's kind of surreal, right? Because I was that little girl that idolized
Yeah.
Medusa in the sport at the time and all the other female drivers. And it was just so crazy that now doing pit parties and stuff, there would be little girls that come in and they have their hair sprayed red, or they'll have different sayings that I say made on a homemade t-shirt or their signs and whatnot. So it's very surreal and humbling to see that now I have that impact, that all the other female drivers used to have on me.
Yeah, I mean, so special that you're doing that. It's great. Good for you. And by the way, to do something that you obviously love, that has been a goal of yours for so long since you were in high school. I think that's incredible that you were able to pinpoint your dream, to chase it down, really go after it, and be successful. What advice would you give to people out there who might feel like whatever it is they want to do is unattainable? Because look, I imagine when you're ninth or 10th grade or something like you were when you first saw one of these competitions, it was probably very intimidating. The idea that you could actually go and do this, but you really kind of just took it step by step. And I mean, what advice would you give people out there? Because I feel like there are so many people who have things they want to do, but they're like, gosh, that's impossible. I'll never be able to do that. Other people can do that, but not me. What would you say?
Yeah, well, but that's not really the way to look at it either. If it's something that you really want to do, then you have to go for it. You're gonna struggle. You're gonna have your ups and downs, and then there's gonna be days where it feels like it's never gonna happen. But if you keep pushing forward and you keep working towards your goal, I mean, and I guess my parents always instilled in me that I could do whatever I want if I worked hard enough, which I did. I kind of started off from the ground floor with the monster truck thing and working underneath them and learning the truck inside and out, with them knowing one day I wanted to drive. So it was kind of one of those things where I found the right steps. I found my way in. I didn't have a handout. I didn't have family in the sport. I didn't have anyone to really help me. I had to reach out and find the right people to talk to in order to kind of weasel my way in there. So, I mean, I think everything's attainable if you work hard enough for it.
Yeah. And look, I would argue that some of the setbacks that you probably experienced, at least I know in my case, anything I've tried to achieve, any goal I've set for myself, sometimes the setbacks or the things that go wrong are the things you learn the most from. And actually looking back, I'm always like, God, if this thing hadn't happened, then this other thing wouldn't have happened. And I probably wouldn't be where I am with whatever it is today. And it's kind of amazing. So when I'm in a moment where things seem like, God, this is really getting hard, or I don't know if this is the right thing for me, I feel like it's impossible, I always try and think back to those couple of experiences I had where I felt that before. And I just kept going and I kept my head down. I kept working at whatever it was. And eventually, if you work as hard as you possibly can and you're willing to put in the time and the effort, and sometimes more than anybody else, you'll achieve something. You'll get to your goal. You'll get to where you want to be. So I love that advice. You're right. I think you got to just step by step and go forward. I want to ask you really quickly though. I read that your first time competing in your career was in Costa Rica. Now, for me, I assumed that this was like an American thing, that we're like into these monster trucks. What is this scene like outside of America? That's wild.
It is. And it's crazy to go anywhere. I think I've been fortunate enough to go to over 20 countries with the monster trucks. So it's kind of insane to see how their culture kind of reacts to it. And it's, of course, like when we go to Europe, they don't really have big trucks like we do here in America, right? They don't have lifted
some big
pickups.
Like diesel. Yeah, it's a totally different animal over there. I love that.
So they're just completely in awe, and they really are some of the best, craziest fans. They they go berserk over it.
Well, yeah, they're like, this is what all Americans are like. They all drive these things around, basically, right? That's
yeah, they're like, oh, typical Americans. Yep.
Wow, that is so cool. So I love it. But are there people, like, are there other countries that compete in this, or you guys just kind of tour around the world?
Yeah, there's I believe another promoter that does some over in Australia. There's a European guy that's got his own little circuit going on. So there is a couple, but for the gist of it, it's us Americans bringing the trucks over, whether it's Monster Jam or Hot Wheels.
I love it. Oh, Hot Wheels. That's another thing my son's so into. I can't even. You're speaking the language at my house. If you came to my house, Becky, I don't know that you would make it out alive. They would just mob you between my two kids. Obviously, we're talked about you and your husband. Being that you're both in the same sport, you're both in the same, livelihood. Are you guys competitive with one another? I would have to assume so.
I mean, not really, right? Really? I mean, sure. When we're, I mean, what would we be competitive in? You know what I mean? Like nothing day to day, but I mean, yes, of course, if we are both on the track together, then it's a different story. Right. But I mean, day-to-day life, no, we're both each other's biggest cheerleader, I guess you could
Oh,
say, but nothing competitive outside of the side of it.
okay. Well, that's a good way to be. I like that answer. You're leaving it all on the dirt, so to speak,
Yeah.
right? Just that's a good way to operate. What's coming up for you? Where can people find you? How can they learn more? How can I figure out when I can take my kids to another one of these suckers?
Well, are you coming to California anytime soon?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe you invite me.
Come on out. We'll put you in the truck.
Oh my gosh. By the way, I mean, now that would be a good one to get me in a truck and get my husband in a truck. That one I would like to see. He would be 100% down for this, as would I. So
Yeah. Guy.
okay, now that we've laid that down, I sort of love it. What do you have something coming up that we can see you doing, or is somewhere people can go to find out more?
Yeah, right now we've kind of got our schedule up on TitanMonsterTruck.com. That's my husband's truck. And I've now, since I'm not driving every weekend, I'm kind of just following him around, being his crew girl. He breaks it, I fix it. It's one of those deals. But
what a wife. Don't
it's
don't
nice,
tell
right?
my husband that.
But we get to do this together, right? It's kind of going back to my roots of how I started with monster trucks. And it's nice. Like, who gets to travel with their other half every single weekend and work together 9 times out of 10 happily. So
that's a good ratio. We'll take that all day.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, listen, Becky, it's so cool. You're so inspirational. Thank you for joining us here at The Right View. We're going to look out for when I can get my kids to see you drive. My daughter would love that, I'm sure. Both my kids would, of course, but keep doing cool stuff. I mean, not like you're going to stop anytime soon.
No, not at all.
What's the average age? Like, is there like a retirement age in this industry?
No, I guess when your body's just had enough.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's Tom Mintz is still out there. I guess I don't even know. I'd hate to throw a number out and be way off, but he's been in it for 35, 40 years, maybe.
Oh, wow.
So if not longer. Yeah. So, and he's still kicking. So, I guess it's kind of however long you want, however long your body can take.
That's a good plan. As long as you want. I like the sound of that. Becky McDonough, thank you for joining us here on The Right View. To everybody at home, as always, thank you for joining us. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, and follow. And we'll see you back here next time for more of The Right View. So I'm like a lot of people. I love to wear an Apple Watch, but I hate how it looks. And I scoured the internet to search for the best looking Apple Watch cases I could find, and I found it. goldandcherry.com. They have absolutely beautiful watches, as you can see here. Everything is waterproof. Everything looks good with different outfits. You can get sporty, you can get fancy, but they are great quality, made out of Delaware in the United States of America. And they have been kind enough to give me a promo code that I can share with you if you want to get your hands on one of these as well. It's Lara T, L-A-R-A-T is the promo code to get yourself a discount at goldandcherry.com. And not only do they make Apple Watch cases, they also make great products for iPads and iPhones, keyboards, your desktop, everything you could possibly need. Goldandcherry.com. Use promo code LARAT so you can get yourself one of these today too. At The Right View, we're very proud of the fact that we are independent. We get to say everything that we think and everything that we feel. We have no woke companies guiding us or telling us what we can and cannot say. We are always going to shoot you straight and give you the facts as we know them. And that's why it's important to support independent outlets like The Right View. My name is Lara Trump, and I think Mike Lindell is a patriot. He is someone who loves this country, is willing to fight for this country. I love MyPillow because not only are MyPillows made in the USA by American workers, but they're great products, and they're so great that not only do I use them in my own bed at night, My children actually requested, my daughter the other day went to the closet and pulled out a MyPillow and said, this is the pillow that I want to sleep with. And I gotta tell you, she loves it and will have nothing to do with any other pillow. So it's a big hit around our house. My dogs also happen to sleep on MyPillow dog beds. So all around the Trump household, we're big fans. If you go to mypillow.com today and use promo code Trump, again, promo code Trump, you will not only save money, but you will help us continue this show and other shows like it and help us continue the fight for the future of America. Inflation has impacted all of our lives. I don't think anyone can go to the gas pump or the grocery store without noticing that it is a major factor. And unfortunately, it's not going anywhere. It doesn't seem like it's going down in the way that we would like it to. And one way to protect your money is by investing in precious metals, gold and silver. That's always been a great way to make sure that you keep your money and you keep it safe. When you go to bh-pm.com, use promo code Trump. That way, if you decide you want to invest in gold and silver, you'll save yourself a little bit of money. We live in a time that's very interesting. A lot of us out there feel like a lot of our rights are slipping away. And if you're like I am and you want to have the right to choose whether or not to have a vaccine, how to live your life freely, and you're looking for a great doctor, I've heard amazing things about Dr. Sherwood. He's somebody who you should really check out and check into, and it'll help support this program and keep us going. So go to sherwood.tv and use promo code Trump. Again, sherwood.tv and use promo code Trump. You can save yourself some money and help us keep our program going.